Think about your own neighborhood for a second. You know, the familiar glow of the street lamps on your block, that quiet, comforting hum of distant traffic. We usually see these things as our friends, right? Like a cozy blanket of safety. We're diving into 4 true accounts that are going to completely challenge that assumption. We're looking at human behavior when the predictable suddenly turns predatory. Because honestly, once you hear that first footstep behind you that isn't your own, well, you realize you were never as alone as you thought.
Consider this chilling reality. The darkness doesn't just hide things, it waits. Let that sink in for a second. It waits, it watches, and sometimes it follows you all the way right up to your front door. Our first account today drops us into a scenario of escalating dread, where a perfectly normal evening turns into a literal fight for survival. So picture your own streets as we examine how incredibly fast an ordinary night can just fracture.
All right, Section 1, the echo in the street. Picture a 19-year-old student in a quiet city in southern Europe. It's a Friday night in October. The streets are completely dead. His house is just a 10-minute walk away in the dark. It feels highly predictable and entirely safe. That is, until the dead silence is shattered.
A scream, and I don't mean a faint shout in the distance. The source describes a man's voice, completely blood-curdling and raw, like the person was in excruciating physical agony. The narrator actually noted it sounded like someone was having their arms severed. Absolutely terrifying. He freezes. His heart is just hammering against his ribs. The street's empty. The heavy silence creeps back in. And then it happens again. A second scream, but much closer this time. And it's coming from the exact direction of his house.
Now watch how rapidly this situation devolves. He starts speed walking, checking over his shoulder every 3 seconds. As he rounds the corner to his home, his stomach just drops. 5 men are standing in the distance. They don't wave, they don't ask for help, they sprint directly at him, shouting unintelligible things, their voices all warped by the wind. Panic sets in. He reaches his front door, he's fumbling for his keys, and in a moment of pure horror movie terror, he drops them. Just imagine that sheer panic, hearing the metal clatter against the pavement while heavy, sprinting footsteps grow rapidly louder right behind you. He snatches them up, throws himself inside, and slams the deadbolt. He's standing there in the dark hallway, lungs burning, waiting for the door to be kicked in or glass to shatter. But nothing happens. The cops eventually patrol the empty street and leave, unable to do much since he wasn't actually physically harmed. He really thought he had survived the ordeal. But the next night, as he's sitting in his living room, a loud bang hits the side of the house, like a rock thrown from the shadows. The terrifying reality here, the danger hadn't passed at all. It lingered right into the next evening, proving the threat was just waiting for him to feel safe again. Was it a lure? Someone else's nightmare? Man, the answer remains hidden in the dark.
Moving on to Section 2, urban shadows. We're shifting from quiet European towns to the hyper-aware streets of New York City. A graduate student is making her late-night commute, well past 10 p.m. She turns down her headphones, just to pay a little more attention to the shadows.
So, what if turning around is actually a mistake? Imagine checking over your shoulder on an empty city block. The second she turned back toward the store she just passed, she saw him. A man had been walking silently, right behind her, and the moment she turned, he just froze. He didn't look down, he didn't pretend to check his phone, he just locked eyes with her, staring with these wide, unblinking eyes. A massive wave of nausea hits her. She ducks into a fast food joint hoping to lose him, but they're closed, forcing her back out onto the dark, dead-end residential street leading to her apartment. And guess what? He was standing right at the entrance of the street, just waiting. She slows her pace to a crawl and calls her brother to get an immediate lifeline. But she still has to actually pass the man to get home. As she walks by, he instantly falls into step right behind her, walking too close, way too close. And then he leans into her ear and whispers, with this unsettling, breathless calmness, "I love you." He starts mumbling all these incomprehensible things, turning a simple walk home into this claustrophobic, slow-burn nightmare on a dead-end street.
As the man keeps approaching, insisting he could help her, she notices this absolutely terrifying sensory detail. His hands. He's wearing bright blue latex gloves. Now, it wasn't a cold night, it wasn't for post-COVID medical safety. These bright blue gloves were completely out of place in the dark and undeniably sinister. He keeps pressuring her, repeating, "You need to go home," actively trying to force her away from the streetlights and back into the darkness of the dead-end street. The gloves you see prove this wasn't just some casual, weird encounter. It was completely calculated.
Her survival at this point relied entirely on a desperate game of stalling. She systematically kept the stalker at bay, ducking into the fast food restaurant to break his line of sight, getting her brother on the phone, and most importantly, she flat out refused to walk to her apartment door, stalling near a well-lit liquor store instead until help arrived. And this tactic literally saved her, because the second her brother appeared walking toward them, the stalker's demeanor changed in a flash and he vanished into the liquor store. It was a perfectly executed survival strategy against a totally unpredictable urban threat.
All right, Section 3, nowhere to hide outdoors. Because what if you aren't in a city? Sometimes the most terrifying walks are the ones where literally only the trees can hear you. In this account, a woman hiking a private forest path felt entirely off. Every snapping twig was making her jump. After recording a personal video diary near a quiet swamp, she heads back to the trailhead. As she steps out of the public restroom, a man in a black hoodie and a purple hat walks up to her, just oozing this fake, unnerving confidence. He deploys what experts call the classic ruse. It's a predatory tactic that exploits a victim's helpful nature, like faking a broken-down car to isolate them. He claims his car is messed up and specifically asks if she could use her small fingers to pop the hood of his red sedan. She declines, making up a lie that she's waiting for a friend, but he lingers, watching her intensely. Luckily, she flagged down a passing couple, pretending to know them, and they helped her escape the situation, as the man drove off in his, you guessed it, completely functional car.
She practically ran home. Safe at last, she pours a glass of wine, ready to review and delete the video diary she'd recorded earlier in the day. But as she sits in the safety of her house and watches the footage of herself talking about how peaceful the swamp was, this absolute chilling realization washes over her. Her perception was a peaceful, quiet, solitary moment in nature. But the reality, captured right there on her screen, it was something straight out of a horror film. Right there, over her shoulder, hidden deep in the tree line, was a flash of purple.
The man in the purple hat had been standing there the entire time. He was right there in her video, watching her record herself, just patiently waiting for the moment she stopped filming so he could follow her to the public bathrooms. As the source states, he had been stalking me through the private woods for miles. I mean, that completely shatters the illusion of rural isolation, doesn't it? It was a long-term, highly calculated hunt. And yeah, after seeing that footage, she never hiked alone again.
Which brings us to Section 4, the stranger at the door. We're moving into our final, escalating account. Picture a wealthy, well-lit neighborhood. Large lawns, motion sensor lights. A guy is house-sitting and walking a golden retriever named Max. It's an environment perfectly designed to make you feel utterly secure.
But watch this agonizing progression of boundary testing. At 1 a.m., while walking the dog, the narrator sees a silent silhouette standing under a street lamp across the street, staring directly at the house. He ignores it. But the next night, the figure isn't across the street. He's right next to the house. When spotted, the intruder doesn't flee the property. He runs deeper into it behind the house. The narrator grabs a flashlight and searches, finding nothing. But hours later, looking out the front window, the stalker has returned. Standing perfectly still on the grassy median under the streetlight, the grip of dread is seriously tightening now.
Faced with this persistent watcher, you really have to ask yourself, would you yell at the darkness? Fight or flight kicked in, and the narrator made a fateful, highly dangerous decision. He stepped outside his safe, locked door and began shouting at the man. "Can I help you?" he yells. Met with dead silence, he threatens to pull out his phone and record the intruder.
And then he charged. The man didn't jog. He didn't casually back away. He began hauling fast, sprinting with explosive speed directly at the porch. The narrator literally had to throw himself backward inside the house, frantically slamming and locking the solid wood door just a fraction of a second before the man reached the threshold. Paralyzed in the dining room, he just waited.
Then, the doorbell rang. Once. Twice. The metal knob began rattling as the stalker tested the lock. And then, through the solid wood of the front door, a calm, deeply rational voice spoke into the house. "Have a good night." The homeowner later reviewed the security footage. This wasn't some local teenager playing a prank. It was a complete unknown. Why was he there? Was he just waiting for the narrator to step outside?
So, we've looked at quiet streets, busy cities, isolated woods, and wealthy suburbs. In every single environment, darkness provides cover. So I'll leave you with one final, haunting question to consider the next time you step out your front door. Are you sure you're walking alone? Because the person standing perfectly still under that street lamp might not be waiting for a ride. They might just be waiting for you to look away. Thanks for joining us. Stay safe out there.